Okay, I should be getting ready to go to my gig, but instead I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to naively react to a naive question on one of these performing musician forums that I've been following of late. And I know, and you're right, and I will reevaluate my life choices, but not today. Not right now. Instead, I'm going to respond to this. So here's the deal. Here's the situation. Here's the skinny. What we got is a father-in-law who is a part-time musician of sorts, who has some musical knowledge, but not enough to answer this question for himself, as you'll see. And his son-in-law owns a brewery, and he's sort of asking, hey, for some advice about how to get music started there. But he's already got some ideas. And the reason I want to react to this is that the ideas he has are very typical. They typify a very prevalent attitude among sort of bottom rung venues. And especially sort of would-be venues, places that music is not their mission, it's not their business plan, but it's something they're trying out, and it's probably something they're trying out to try to solve a problem. And the problem is called Tuesday. And it's like, oh geez, how are we going to get some butts and seats, some thirsty butts and seats on Tuesday? I don't know. Maybe we could have live music or trivia or bingo or whatever, what have you. So here's the rundown of what they have, what they're kind of kicking around, what they'd like a little our thoughts about. So son-in-law owns a brewery, has asked me to get a live music trial plan together. It's gonna be a test to see how it does for his business. Um, we want to do once a week to start. We're looking at midweek to boost a slower night in the tasting room. The craft beer is award-winning. The food is great. The tasting room supports about 100 people, and if we're lucky, half will be attentive to the music. He wants solo acoustic musicians or duos. I've got all the gear. Mics, and stands, and a PA, and that's going to be the house system. And I'm going to be the opening performer, and I'll run sound. I want to get singers. We want to attract some singer-songwriters who are new to performing or who might want to woodshed their tunes to a small venue audience as a headliner. And then if it proves out after a few times, we'll see. But for now, it's going to be beer, food, and tips. And I'm going to donate my tips to the headliner, rest assured, so that it covers gas, etc. That etc. is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. And then talks, asks, how should I promote it? How should and then really stresses, I don't want an open mic. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about an open stage. I'm not talking about, that's not what I mean. Just looking for some advice. Okay. Anyway. Okay. I know I'm being smarmy. I know I'm being ornery. But hey, this attitude is out there. I deal with this a lot. As an original musician with a very modest following, the modest is doing a lot of heavy lifting right there. I have to navigate the bottom rungs of the ladder, and this is what's on the bottom rung of the ladder are places that they're not necessarily in it for the most noble reasons, or it's probably not the right way to say it, but there's a huge difference between venues that's part of their business plan, that's part of their mission. I think about like jazz venues that are really trying to curate talent. Like they want to make sure they are booking the best. They're trying to attract the jazz listening audience. Come to us. We consistently book the best acts. And you can think of in your town, here in my town, like, oh, the ones that come to mind, and not just for jazz, but the venues that come to mind as the best places to see live music. And in part, what's implicit there is a curated lineup of superior talent. Okay, this is not that kind of venue, and they're not on the road to being that kind of venue anytime soon. There are a lot of mid-level venues where they're active. They have live music a lot. And you've been there and you've seen good shows, and you've been there and you've seen ho-hum shows. But that it's very established that music is part of what you expect when you go there. And it's a focal experience. There's a stage, there's sound, you're going to come in and there's going to be music playing. It's not background music. Then there are other places that have live music routinely as part of the ambiance. This is what the case is in a lot of, tasting rooms, coffee shops. There's not necessarily a stage, but that I like going to this place because it's kind of nice. It's kind of cool to have that going on. And then there's places that have like stuff that happens. Live music is one of the things. It's not really their like specialty, but it's one of the things, and you kind of get the sense that it's not something that a whole lot of energy or effort has gone into. And that's kind of what's going on here. So, first, I guess the way I want to react to this is as if I was giving them the advice, as if they'd come to me for advice. They will not come to me for advice, but this is what I would say. First off, the tips thing is a problem because you get what you pay for. The great musicians who really have their act together, two things happen. Either they have really, on the business side, they've got their act together and they've got their package to such an attractive level, and they are talented enough to have done that, because nobody follows terrible bands. But they don't have to be the most talented, but they've got to be talented enough. Those bands, and then the supremely talented musicians who are getting like buzz and write-ups, and there's people are taking notice of them and sort of the critical scene. And people, when they hear them, are like, "Oh, that's amazing! That that I've never heard anything like that," or whatever. There's something about they've got that it factor. Those bands are not playing these kind of gigs. Those bands have, the cream of the crop, and they can demand a certain amount of. They can demand the best compensation from the best venues. The venues that have budgeted, we're trying to attract the best, they're going to gobble them up. Now let's talk about you. You want to pay just tips. There's a huge difference between what you get paying just tips and paying peanuts. Very, very solid musicians will play for peanuts. You won't have your pick of everybody, but you'll have good interest, decent interest. So budget at least peanuts, something. You want to get solo acoustic musicians on an off night? Okay, if you're committed to that, pay something, and you'll get good ones. And don't expect that it's like quid pro quo. Well, if I pay you $50, you need to have a following of 500 people. That's not realistic. That's not going to happen. Musicians who legitimately have a big following, they demand that's gold. And if they're smart, they know it, and they don't bother with playing for peanuts. They certainly don't bother with playing for tips, and they don't bother with playing for the door. What they do is they get a guarantee, and sometimes a door on top of that. So that's a different side of things. What you want to do is pay to get talent, enough talent. You want to sort of weed out the riffraff a little bit, pay something, and be picky about who the people who respond. You're going to have some good people, and make sure you pick them. They stress that they don't want an open stage, but I think what you describe is what open stages are for. What you really want is a Tuesday open stage that And then you want Friday regular music that you've curated, that you're paying something for, and you want to kind of funnel towards the main event. You want to promote this in the venue. You want to kind of get it in people's heads. There's music here, and the music is decent. Tuesdays. So if you have an open stage, you want it to be well run on Tuesday, because again, if Tuesday is a slow night for you and you're trying to like establish an open stage, you're trying to bring in the open stage players. Open stage players it's a great community. They are very picky. They know good ones from bad ones, and they have different ones to choose from on different nights. So make sure you get a good host, and that it's well run, and that it's appealing to the players. So that, and if they have a bad experience, the word will get out, and they will not come back, and they will tell the other players they know. Oh, I didn't like that one because this happened. Whatever. So my advice for this person, this son-in-law and father-in-law, is get a Tuesday open stage, pay a host, budget, and pay something, pay that host, build it into a great open stage where that community has their time coming to your location on your slow night. Build a music program where you're paying, again, something, getting decent musicians, and it's kind of in the details that make sure that you are taking care to pick good talent, the best talent that you can discern for your Friday, and build a culture of that you are a good place to go for live music. You gotta build this thing. It's not just gonna like immediately happen. Otherwise, there is no magic wand, and that's how like the best venues and the mid-level venues put themselves on the map. So not just those upper echelon ones, but the ones that have longevity and have been doing this for a while, and have been successful having live music. The way they put themselves on the map is that they make it exciting. They make it something that people want to come out for. They don't rely on finding popular musicians and let's fleece your friends one at a time for $5. That's not very sustainable. That doesn't work out well. That doesn't work great. Build the program, pay a little bit, budget, start there. And that is actually a blueprint for a pretty good venue. So it doesn't take a whole lot of money, but it takes a little bit, and it takes some patience, and it takes some attention to detail. It takes curating your booking, and it does help to have an open stage. So anyway, those are my thoughts. No one cares. We see you next time.